Okay.
Get my U.S. soccer logo.
I'm already recorded, so we're good. My name's Jeff Cutler for A Life of Play. I'm here with Pat and Adam, and we're talking World Cup football or World Cup soccer. What do you want to call it, guys? And why are you so passionate about the sport?
Football.
Why are you
Jeff, I
so?
think,
Why do you care? Why are you passionate? Why should anyone care?
well, first of all, so let's define what this is. This is the World Cup of Soccer. This is the 20th, 19th. They've had several of these since the late 30s, early 30s. And it happens every 4 years. And Pat and I are pretty excited because yesterday was the draw. So the final 24 teams were announced. And you figured out what group everybody was in.
Now, what teams are you rooting for? Pat, I think you're rooting for Finland or Liechtenstein, or who is it?
Well, I'm half Argentine, so I'm rooting, of course, for the U.S., but also for Argentina. And this is probably one of the best chances for Argentina to grab the World Cup because it's in South America, which always helps South American teams, and they have Lionel Messi, the best player in the world.
Arguably the best player in the world.
Well, I've heard of Messi. I've heard an awful lot about him. Who is Argentina paired against? Who did they draw?
Argentina in their group, they have a pretty easy group actually. They have Bosnia-Herzegovina, Nigeria, and Iran.
I'm doing an F. Can everybody see the group F?
Yeah, Group F. My guess is that the bookies have them at 99% to emerge from that group.
Really?
And probably 78% to win it. I mean, it'd be astonishing if they didn't. They're ranked 4th. All those teams are ranked 20th or higher.
Wow.
It's an awful group except for Argentina.
And here's what happens, Jeff. The top 2 teams go through to the next round, which is called the round of 16.
Right.
So we're reducing, basically.
Okay, then Adam, let's if we jump over, what team are you backing? What horse are you backing? Hopefully not the U.S. because the U.S. is in the death group
I
or
was
something.
born,
right?
also born in the USA, but my soccer passion started when I lived in England. So I always say you support the team that you first followed and you first fell in love with. So unfortunately, I'm sort of cursed with England as my favorite team. And here's what I do, because the last time they won the World Cup was in 1966. And usually what England does, and we can talk about this later, but England will play very hard and very strong, and they'll be aggressive, and then they'll squeak through to the next round, and then they'll either lose to Germany or Argentina or Italy on penalty kicks. It's guaranteed that will happen this year, just like every other year. So once that happens, I've always supported the home nation. Whoever's hosting the World Cup, I figure they've suffered enough. They've spent all this money. Everybody's invaded their country and is drinking their alcohol and ruining their public parks. So I always root for the home nation. So I rooted for France in '98, and they won. And I rooted for Germany even when Germany hosted, and they got to the final. So I think this year I'll root for Brazil once England gets knocked out, because Brazil deserves to win, frankly.
But you can say that right there with someone who's backing Argentina?
Well, here's the thing, and let me break down the Brazil group. So Group A is Brazil, which is ranked number 1 in the world. Some people would say Spain's number 1, but let's say Brazil's ranked number 1 because they're hosting the tournament. Croatia, which traditionally has been a strong team, but probably isn't this year. Mexico, which has suffered brutally. They had one of the worst qualifying sessions that a team that made it through has ever done. What did they win? 1 game, 2 games?
It was appalling. They only got through because the U.S. Pulled off an incredible 2 goals in extra time against Panama, and if we didn't, Mexico would not have gone on to the World Cup.
Okay, and then the 4th team in that group is Cameroon, who traditionally, way back when, they actually, did they beat England or they almost beat England?
I don't know, they used to have a really great goalie, I remember.
I think they beat England. I guess that's another team that is liable to beat England in this tournament. So Cameroon used to have a player called Raja Mila, who was an amazing player, but they're not going to damage Brazil, and Croatia isn't going to damage Brazil. And here's what happens in the next round. This is where it gets exciting, Jeff, and I was trying to explain this to you when we were talking on the phone. After you go through the group stages, and we've got groups here if you want us to show any of them, but after you go through the group stages, then it's single elimination. So you've done a round-robin tournament, basically, where you play 3 teams, and you get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, which is a tie, and 0 for a loss. So theoretically, if you win all your games in your first round, you're going to be top of your group. If you win 2 or win 1, you got to sort of struggle, right? Because other teams could do the same thing.
Yeah, it's generally expected you're going to need 5 points probably to emerge from your group.
So a win and 2 ties.
A win and 2 ties will almost certainly do it. A win and a tie can do it if the other team has like won everything and there's other ties.
And then it goes to goal difference, which is risky.
Yeah.
Like if you haven't been killing teams, you're at the risk of a team that has been killing teams.
Now let me ask you a question. If someone doesn't know World Cup and doesn't follow football, soccer, how do they get involved? Where do they go to see these games?
How could they not, Jeff? How could they not? At this point in the history of the planet, this is a sport that's going to be watched by billions of people.
Right.
When the tournament starts on June 12th, there's going to be billions of people watching this, Jeff. So for the few people who don't get it, they should, if they're in the U.S., they should watch a lot of ESPN because ESPN will have blanket coverage. They should watch podcasts like this one. No. They should they should go to
bars.
They should go to bars and talk to people who are passionate about this, who grew up in a different country or grew up in America and are passionate about it. And the cool thing about going to a bar is you can watch multiple games. Early in the tournament, there can be days where there'll be an afternoon game and an evening game. And you go to a bar and you eat, you drink, and you talk to people. And that's some of the most fun that you asked, how did we get passionate about the sport? So I think when I've been most passionate is when I've been at World Cups. Because you're talking to people. I remember I was in Los Angeles for the World Cup final in '94, and I was talking to people from Egypt. And when do I get a chance, walking around Boston or back in college to talk to people from Egypt about the World Cup? So that was, I'm sure you've got similar stories from traveling around the world. That's where it happens. That's where the passion is built. When you're talking about this commonality that we all have, that we either played or we play now or we referee or we coach our kids or all the above. And thankfully, ESPN, like I said, and lots of other networks around the world will blanket coverage because there's a lot of money involved and there's a lot of national pride and there's a lot of great athletes. Let's think about this, Jeff. You like American football. So tell me how long you think the ball is in play in American football. The actual ball is in play.
Probably about 3.5 minutes for a whole game.
Well, it's not that bad. It's closer to 12 to 15. So you're in front of your TV for 3.5 hours watching something that's actually taking place in 12 to 15 minutes, or 18 at the most. So Pat and I, we still play football, soccer, and we're on the field for 90 minutes with a 10-minute break in between. And we're not huffing and chugging and running full speed the whole game. That's what you sort of pick up. There's nuance that you pick up in the World Cup, I think, a lot more than watching anything else.
Sure.
So let's go a little.
And there's incredible passion in the game. There's strategies for how you're going to play your game. A lot of teams come in, they try to be really safe on the first game. They try to do everything but lose. So you'll see a lot of ties in that first round match. But sometimes another team will go for it if they think they really need to win it. They'll go for it in that first game, and it's remarkable how much the first game in a group can really shake up everything that people thought going into that World Cup.
Especially if there's an upset. If one of the favorites loses.
Exactly. And all of a sudden, the whole world's media is going to be wondering if Brazil is actually going to make it out of their own group.
That's not happening.
That's not happening. Brazil is going to win all 3 of their games in their group.
So why don't we say that out of all the groups, who's most likely to get knocked off? We talked about Spain earlier. Spain is Jeff. I don't know if you know, Spain has won the last World Cup, the last European Cup, and what's the other one I'm missing? What's the triumvirate? The Confederation Cup?
Yeah, maybe.
So they've won 3 international tournaments in a row, unprecedented.
Right.
And the pressure is on because they haven't reloaded with youth as much as they could have. So they've sort of got an aging team of cagey veterans, as American sports would call them. But they're liable to get knocked off because here's what's happened. There's club soccer, right? So there's Barcelona, one of the greatest teams in the world. There's my team, Liverpool. All these teams play against each other. And you pick up on some national patterns, right?
Sure.
Even though it's a mix of nations, the German teams last year were superior to the Spanish teams. And the year before that, a very defensive English team called Chelsea was superior to everybody else because they parked the bus, as we like to call it, or don't like to call it.
They got a bit lucky, too.
Yeah.
And luck helps. So this year, Spain, I would pick as my dark horse to get eliminated early, and they're either the 1 or the 2 in the whole world. So that would cause a fuss.
And
the other thing that's
who would Pat pick? Who's your dark horse to win this? And then what we'll do is plan to come back and maybe do a live show on June 12th or 13th from a bar together, and we'll follow a team right there. But who's your dark horse to win, Pat?
As long as you're with us. We're not doing Skype again. You got to be with us, Jeff. We'll do it.
Technology
so
stuff.
I think Adam was talking about a dark horse to be eliminated from someone that's expected to get out of group play that might get eliminated. He's thinking Spain. As far as who I think is going to win, I feel pretty confident it's going to be either Brazil or Argentina. A European team has not won the World Cup outside of Europe except for the South African World Cup, which was the first one in Africa. But generally, South American teams will win South American World Cups. European teams will win European Cups. When it was in America, it was won by a South American team.
Yeah.
Brazil won that World Cup. You don't always know what to make of that. But I think that Brazil has to be the favorite coming into this. I think Argentina is probably, in my book, the second favorite to win it. Of the European teams, I would think Germany is ascendant now and would be the most likely to win it.
I'd go Germany, and because they know how to win matches, I'd go with Italy, but they're in a tough group. So Italy's in a group with my team, England, and Italy's also with Uruguay, who has one of the best players in the world, Luis Suarez, and they're with Costa Rica, who out of I don't know if you know, CONCACAF is where America and Mexico play. Costa Rica could surprise some teams. So here's the thing, Jeff. It's going to be fun, and you should watch as much as you can, because the passion that people feel. I mean, you can see we get sort of agitated and we get pumped up.
Yeah.
This is what, January. We're December 7th.
You're a little ahead of yourself. So why don't
we've got until the 12th of June to wait.
So let's reconvene in the spring. We'll set up a match watching, podcast recording festival. And we'll go from there. And I want to thank you both for being on a Life of Play podcast. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
So if you want to meet us in the meantime, we'll be at the Phoenix Landing in Cambridge. It's the best soccer or football bar in Boston.
Cambridge, Massachusetts. Yeah, okay.
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Not Cambridge, England. Yeah, okay.
If you want to host us, if any of your podcast watchers want to host us in any cities, especially D.C., what's the place in D.C., the football bar?
Oh, I don't remember.
All right.
We'll travel. We'll travel, Jeff. We'll travel.
We'll try and make that possible. Thanks for being on Life of Play. See you guys.
Send us on assignment in Brazil.
Why? Going to Brazil. See you, Jeff. Thank you.
Yep.